Have you ever caught yourself waiting for a text like your peace depended on it? Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have, hoping they would finally see your value? Have you ever worried that if someone walked away, your whole world might fall apart? And have you ever wondered why, no matter how much you grow, certain relationship patterns keep breaking your heart? Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody talks about. Sometimes the biggest reason your relationships hurt isn't because you keep meeting the wrong people. It's because part of you still doesn't fully believe you're worthy of healthy love. Yes, I know that sounds intense, maybe even a little uncomfortable to hear, because on the surface, you might believe you know your worth and truly think you deserve to be loved and happy. But how does it feel on a deeper level? Maybe you've already worked on yourself. Read the books, watch the videos, tried to communicate better. But again, how do you actually feel deep inside when you pause and really reflect on that? If it feels like the same pain keeps showing up, just wearing a different face, then this video is for you, because today we're going to talk about low self-worth. What if the problem was never that you love too much? What if the real issue is that somewhere deep down, your self-worth in relationships became connected to being chosen instead of being grounded in who you are? When low self-worth is running quietly in the background, you don't just choose relationships. You often choose what feels familiar, even when that familiar feeling comes with anxiety, emotional confusion, or fear of abandonment. And that's exactly why today, I want to invite you to go deeper than surface-level advice and reflect on the hidden emotional patterns, the inner child healing work most people avoid, and the subtle beliefs that may be shaping your love life without you even realizing it. And trust me, one of these patterns may hit closer to home than you expect. So let's start with the first sign. You confuse being chosen with being worthy. There's a pattern a lot of people carry into adulthood without even realizing it. Somewhere along the way, you may have started believing that your value increases when someone texts you back, when they invite you in, when they say, "I miss you." And in those moments, it can make you feel so good, so light, so wanted, so worthy. And when they don't, it's like your whole sense of self-worth in relationships quietly starts shaking. Maybe you tell yourself you're independent, but then your mood changes based on how one person responds to you. One unread message, one delayed reply, one little shift in energy, and boom, your mind starts filling in the blanks. Did I do something wrong? Was I too much? Not enough? That's often what low self-worth sounds like when it wears a confident outfit and smiles in public. I remember talking to someone who looked incredibly put together. Great job, strong social circle, the kind of person everyone thought had it all figured out. But every time someone pulled away emotionally, she fell apart inside. Why? Because part of her inner child still believed attention meant safety and silence meant abandonment. And if you've ever felt that fear of abandonment creeping in, trust me, you're not imagining it. One thing that can help is noticing when your peace becomes dependent on someone else's consistency. Try this. Next time you feel anxious waiting for a text, pause and write down 3 things that make you valuable that have absolutely nothing to do with being desired. It sounds simple, but self-worth affirmations, when spoken with real intention and belief, can start revealing truths your adult mind may have forgotten. And that's where things start getting interesting, especially when you begin noticing what you've been tolerating just to keep someone close. Sign number 2. You ignore red flags because you're afraid of losing connection. You know what's wild? Most people don't miss red flags because they can't see them. They miss them because seeing them would force a painful decision. Deep down, you notice the inconsistency, the mixed signals, the emotional distance. But part of you whispers, maybe I'm overthinking it, or nobody's perfect. Maybe I'm expecting too much. And just like that, your self-worth in relationships starts negotiating with things your heart already knows don't feel right. Maybe they disappear for days and come back acting like nothing happened. Maybe they only reach out when it's convenient for them. Maybe you're always the one checking in, understanding, being patient, basically running an emotional customer service desk with no lunch break. And instead of asking, why am I accepting this? You start asking, how can I make this work? That's often how low self-worth quietly keeps you stuck. A lot of this doesn't start in adult relationships. It starts much earlier. In inner child healing, one of the hardest truths people face is realizing that what feels familiar doesn't always feel healthy. If love once felt unpredictable, emotionally distant or conditional, your nervous system may confuse chaos with connection. So when someone sends mixed signals, your brain doesn't say run. Sometimes it says, this feels like home. And that's how you end up putting up with behaviors that are actually not okay, not healthy, and honestly, not something you have to accept. Because the truth is, you always have the right to walk away if that's what feels right for you. Here's something practical. The next time someone's behavior leaves you confused, don't just ask yourself how you feel about them. Ask how you feel around them. Calm, safe, drained, anxious. And then ask yourself something even deeper. Do these feelings actually feel good? Or do they just feel familiar? And that's why I've learned to live with them. Journaling those moments can reveal patterns faster than you think. Because once you stop ignoring the signs, you may start noticing something even deeper. How often you've been giving more than you're receiving, hoping that maybe this time it'll finally be enough. Sign number 3, you overgive to feel loved. Sometimes you're not giving because you genuinely want to. Sometimes you're giving because somewhere deep down, you're terrified that if you stop, people might stop loving you. So you become the one who always checks in, always understands, always forgives, always shows up. You become easy to love by becoming easy to use. And little by little, your self-worth in relationships starts depending on how useful you can be to other people. You say yes when you're exhausted. You listen when your own heart feels heavy. You make excuses for people who barely do the minimum, while you keep pouring your time, your energy, your patience into connections that feel one-sided. And here's the tricky part. From the outside, it can look like kindness. But on the inside, sometimes it's low self-worth wearing the costume of generosity. I've seen people buy gifts they couldn't afford, cancel plans they were excited about, or stay up until 2 a.m., comforting someone who never asks how they're doing. Why? Because part of them learned early that love had to be earned, that if they were helpful enough, calm enough, attractive enough, supportive enough, maybe people would stay. That's why inner child healing can feel so emotional, because you're not just changing habits, you're rewriting survival patterns. Here's something worth trying this week. Before saying yes to someone, pause and ask yourself, if I say no, do I believe they'll still care about me? That question can expose more than years of overthinking. And if fear of abandonment shows up when you imagine setting a boundary, well, that's often where the real work begins, especially when rejection starts feeling personal. Sign number 4. Rejection feels like proof. that something is wrong with you. For some people, rejection is disappointing. For others, it feels devastating, not because of what happened, but because of what it seems to confirm. One breakup, one unanswered message, one person losing interest, and suddenly, it doesn't feel like their choice. It feels like proof that you were never enough. That's one of the deepest ways low self-worth can quietly shape your reality. You may tell yourself, "I'm fine, it's not a big deal," but then your mind starts replaying every conversation. Did I say too much? Was I too emotional, too needy, too quiet? And before you know, you're not just processing what happened. You're quietly wondering if something is wrong with you. And that's where self-worth in relationships often becomes tangled with approval. In inner child healing, this usually points to something older than the person who rejected you. Maybe growing up, attention felt inconsistent. Maybe praise came only when you performed, achieved, behaved, or made other people comfortable. So now, when someone pulls away, your nervous system doesn't just feel sadness. It feels fear of abandonment, shame, and that old voice whispering, "See, you're the problem." Here's something powerful to practice. When rejection happens, write 2 columns. In one, write what happened. In the other, write the story your mind immediately created about it. Most people discover those 2 things are wildly different. And once you see that, you may start noticing why you sometimes stay in places where you're barely seen, still hoping someone will finally choose you. Sign number 5. You stay too long where you're not valued. One of the hardest truths to face is this. Sometimes you're not staying because you're in love. You're staying because leaving would force you to face what you've been settling for. So you remain in relationships, friendships, even family dynamics where you feel invisible, emotionally drained, or quietly lonely. And somehow, even when it hurts, staying feels safer than walking away. That's how self-worth in relationships can become tied to endurance instead of peace. You tell yourself things like, "They're just going through a lot," or "Nobody's perfect," or the classic, "Maybe if I'm more patient, things will change." And hey, empathy is beautiful, but not when it becomes a reason to abandon yourself. I've seen people wait months, sometimes years, for breadcrumbs, convincing themselves it's a full meal. Low self-worth can make emotional neglect feel normal when deep down it never really did. A big part of inner child healing is realizing that if you grew up feeling unseen, dismissed, or emotionally secondary, your nervous system may have learned that being overlooked is just part of love. So when someone gives you 20% effort, part of you feels disappointed, but another part says, "At least they didn't leave." That's often fear of abandonment quietly running the show behind the scenes. Here's something practical. Make a list of the people in your life and ask yourself one honest question. Do I feel emotionally nourished after spending time with them, or emotionally depleted? Don't judge the answer, just notice it. Because once you start seeing where you're undervalued, another question naturally starts showing up. Why do you keep being drawn to people who were never fully available in the first place? Sign number 6, you keep choosing emotionally unavailable people. Have you ever noticed how some people feel almost magnetic to you, but somehow they're always just out of reach? They're warm one day, distant the next. Deep conversations at midnight, then silence for 2 days, like they accidentally joined witness protection. And even though it drains you, something about them feels familiar. That's often where self-worth in relationships starts getting confused with emotional chasing. You tell yourself it's chemistry, that they're just complex, busy, or not great at expressing feelings. Meanwhile, you're the one decoding texts, analyzing tone changes, replaying conversations like game footage after the playoffs. And if you're honest, sometimes the uncertainty itself feels addictive. That's what low self-worth can do. It can make emotional inconsistency feel exciting instead of exhausting. In inner child healing, this pattern often traces back to early experiences where love felt unpredictable. Maybe affection came in waves. Maybe approval had to be earned. Maybe someone important was physically present but emotionally unavailable. So now, your nervous system doesn't always feel drawn to peace. Sometimes it's drawn to what feels familiar, even when that familiarity triggers fear of abandonment. Try this the next time you feel intensely attracted to someone. Ask yourself, am I attracted to how this person makes me feel, or to how hard I have to work to feel chosen by them? That question can hit like cold water. Because when you finally stop chasing unavailable love, another uncomfortable truth often appears. What if part of you still believes love has to be earned in the first place? Sign number 7, you think love has to be earned. For a lot of people, love never felt like something you simply received. It felt like something you had to qualify for. You had to be helpful, calm, attractive, successful, funny, low maintenance. Basically, a one-person emotional Swiss Army knife. And without even realizing it, your self-worth in relationships became connected to performance instead of presence. Not, am I loved? But what do I need to do so they won't leave? So you overthink your words. You apologize when you did nothing wrong. You hide your needs so you don't seem too much. You become incredibly good at reading the room, adjusting your personality, making other people comfortable, while quietly disconnecting from yourself. That's one of the deepest forms of low self-worth, when people love the version of you that keeps abandoning you. I remember coaching someone who said, healthy love felt suspicious. Imagine that. When someone communicated clearly, respected boundaries, and stayed consistent, her first instinct wasn't peace, it was discomfort. Why? Because her nervous system had spent years associating intensity with love. That's why inner child healing can feel so disorienting. Sometimes safety feels boring before it feels safe. This week, try something small but powerful. When someone offers kindness, support, or affection, notice your first reaction. Do you receive it, or immediately feel like you have to give something back to deserve it? That's where self-worth affirmations start becoming more than words. They become reprogramming. And once you start seeing that, you begin realizing the pattern was never really about love. It was always about what you believed you were worth. If you made it all the way here, I want you to realize something. These patterns were never proof that something is wrong with you. They were signs. Signs that at some point in your life, parts of you may have learned that love is supposed to feel like anxiety, insecurity, overthinking, constantly worrying, and quietly doubting your own worth. But the truth is, that's not love. Love actually feels very different. Love feels calm. Love feels safe. Love feels peaceful. And most importantly, love doesn't make you question your worth. But now you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Which means from this moment on, you get to make a different choice. You get to stop chasing what drains you, stop shrinking to keep people close, and start building the kind of self-worth in relationships that doesn't disappear when someone else pulls away. So here's what I want to ask you. Which of these patterns hit you the hardest today? If you feel comfortable, share it in the comments. Sometimes, the moment you put your truth into words, healing begins in ways you didn't expect. And if this video helped you understand your patterns a little more deeply, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so we can keep growing together. And if someone you care about is stuck in these same patterns, send them this video. Sometimes one conversation, one insight, one moment of awareness can change the direction of someone's life. I genuinely hope this video helps you understand yourself a little more deeply. But more than that, I truly hope it helps you build healthier love and a life that finally feels aligned with what you're actually worth. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.